Are you ready to shatter everything you think you know about God? We will explore Seth's most audacious and revealing vision through Jane Roberts. Prepare yourself for an approach that challenges common beliefs and invites you to see the divine in a completely new light. If you want to uncover the deep and surprising truth that can transform your understanding of existence, don't miss this video. Here, you will find insights that go beyond the ordinary and reveal what many do not have the courage to discuss. Who was Seth? This question takes us to a field between the spiritual and the ethereal, a realm where modern science hesitates to tread, but which spiritual seekers embrace. Seth is an incorporeal entity who, from the 1960s onwards, communicated through the writer Jane Roberts. Jane, a poet and author with an almost insatiable curiosity, became a conduit for Seth in a process that she herself described as surprisingly natural but deeply transformative. For many, Seth is a teacher of consciousness, offering a revolutionary vision of reality that goes beyond conventional metaphysics. He was not a spirit in the traditional sense, but an energetic personality with a mission: to expand human understanding of the potential of the mind and the very nature of existence. During these sessions, Jane dictated Seth's words in a trance, revealing teachings that ranged from the structure of consciousness to the creative role of human thought. His words captured the attention of New Age scholars, independent thinkers, and those curious about the occult. Books like Seth Speaks and The Nature of Personal Reality, they have become guides for those seeking to understand themselves in a universe where mind and matter intertwine. Seth challenged his listeners to abandon the vision of a separate and impersonal God. Instead, he spoke of a universal force that pulses within each of us, a concept that echoes ancient teachings from mystical traditions, but with fresh, provocative language. This entity became the voice of a movement that dared to see beyond the veil of the obvious, urging us to rediscover the essence that connects us to infinity. Seth, this entity channeled by Jane Roberts, didn't just bring words, brought a subtle revolution to the conception of God and the nature of reality. In his bold and almost defiant speech, Seth reconfigures the idea of God as something that goes beyond the boundaries of anthropomorphism and the limited archetypes of culture. Rather than a patriarchal figure in the sky, God, according to Seth, is a vast network of conscious energy, pulsing in all directions and in all dimensions. This idea is not a rhetorical trick, but a provocation to the thinking and searching mind, an invitation to rethink the origin and fabric of the universe. Seth proposes that God is the essence of all that exists, a force that permeates reality on multiple levels, a presence in both the visible and the invisible. It forces us to look beyond simplistic narratives of divinity, questioning the linear structure of reality that we accept without hesitation. His vision subtly dialogues with contemporary physics, which is beginning to recognize reality as something more than particles and waves, a field that vibrates with possibility and consciousness. Seth's revelations lead us to an understanding in which the divine is not separate from us, but intrinsic to every fragment of existence. It is a redefinition that requires courage to understand, as it breaks paradigms and disrupts the comfort zone of dogma. He invites those who are bold enough to embrace the idea that reality is much more malleable and complex than we imagine, and that God, after all, is not an entity we observe from afar, but a deep and active element in our being, in the symphony of each choice and thought. Diving into Seth's vision of the inner essence of the universe is like stepping through a portal into a truth so vast it slips through our fingers if we try to define it. According to Seth, God is not a distant, judgmental entity or governed by human concepts of morality and form. God is the source of all conscious energy, a primordial field where every idea, emotion, and act is born and merges. It is a concept that refuses to be confined within the structures of religious dogma or rational explanations, challenging our minds to expand to understand something vaster than the physical universe itself. This perspective requires intellectual and spiritual courage, understanding that the divine is in everything and everyone, permeating the visible and the invisible. When Seth talks about this essence, he reveals that the universe is not just a stage for random events, but a living fabric where consciousness is both the web and the weaver. This God, as a conscious energetic source, does not just observe, actively participates in all creations, including you and me. We are intertwined in this living matrix that breathes and evolves with every choice we make. If this sounds abstract, it's because it challenges our limited perception. Think about quantum physics, which begins to touch on similar ideas without naming them directly. The interconnectedness of everything, the matter that responds to the observer. Seth takes this idea further, stating that consciousness is not a byproduct of existence, but its origin. What does this mean for us? That the divine spark is in every thought, in every atom. Reducing God to a human concept would be a colossal mistake. He is the very substance of the real and potential pulsing in us and for us. It takes courage to look this truth in the eye and understand that divinity is not just something to be sought after. It is something to be recognized and lived. Consciousness, according to Seth, is the key to deciphering the enigma we call God. And this statement has an impact as profound as an unexpected stroke of lucidity. Here we are not dealing with superficial or empty mystical ideas. We are talking about a vision that places us, human beings, as active and conscious participants in the very mechanism of the universe. Seth challenges the view that consciousness is a simple side effect of biology. For him, it is the guiding thread of reality, the force that gives life to matter and energy. But if consciousness is so powerful and omnipresent, what does this mean for our search for God? Are we looking in the wrong place? Imagine consciousness as the tool through which the divine essence observes and experiences creation itself. Seth suggests that God is not a separate entity, but a vibrant, conscious presence that permeates everything, from every fleeting thought to the grandest galaxy. Therefore, understanding God is, in fact, a process of deepening our understanding of ourselves and the web of perceptions and thoughts that we weave daily. It makes you wonder, if consciousness is the key, what are we creating with our thoughts? Are we aware of the divine power we carry in our minds? Throughout the sessions with Jane Roberts, Seth highlighted that understanding consciousness opens doors to a world where divinity is not seen as an external being, but as the background that sustains all things. He stated that consciousness is both the creator and the creation. In other words, the act of thinking, of being aware, is in itself an expression of the divine. And now, I ask, are you using this key to open doors, or are you keeping them closed out of fear or ignorance? That's Seth's provocation, and it's up to us to decide what to do with it. Seth invites us to cross a threshold that few dare. The idea that our reality is not singular, but one of infinite coexisting possibilities. The concept of the multiverse, which many might consider exclusive to science fiction, gains a surprising spiritual depth in his words. For Seth, this is not mere guesswork or a game of speculation. It is a truth intrinsic to the nature of being. Each parallel universe is not isolated, but a manifestation of a divine consciousness that permeates and connects them all. What if God was not just the creator of our universe, but the conscious force present in each of these simultaneous realities? This changes everything. To think of God as a one-dimensional entity is to limit an infinitely expansive force. Seth proposes that by understanding the existence of multiple universes, we begin to grasp the complexity and vastness of the divine. God, in this context, is a conscious field that transcends the barriers between these worlds, a presence that interacts and experiences across countless versions of reality. Every choice we make, every thought, reverberates in dimensions we can't even imagine, influencing not only our line of existence, but echoes in parallel realities. The idea challenges our linear understanding of life and requires an expansion of mind. If the divine manifests itself in infinite variations of the universe, then our search for God becomes an invitation to explore not only our world, but the myriad of realities that unfold from us. Each act of consciousness is a potential portal, a spark that ignites possibilities beyond the time and space we know. And are you ready to accept that the universe you see is just one piece of a cosmic tapestry, where the divine lives and breathes in every point of the fabric. Seth leaves us with this disturbing question, a call for us to recognize that the search for God is not linear, but a dance between realities, all sustained by the same conscious essence. Seth reveals to us a disturbingly fascinating concept, the idea that time, as we understand it, is an illusion. If you think time is a straight line from childhood to aging with a beginning, middle, and end, get ready for a twist. For Seth, time is a limited perceptual construct, a tool that consciousness uses to organize experiences, but which, in essence, does not exist. God, then, does not operate under the rules of linear time, but rather in a state of simultaneity where past, present, and future coexist. This shakes the foundations of our understanding of the divine and, even more so, of our own existence. Imagine that every moment you have ever lived or will live is not behind or in front, but side by side, in an eternal panorama of nows. God, being the primordial consciousness, experiences all of this at once, in a tapestry without beginning or end. This vision is not a purposeless abstraction. It has profound implications for how we perceive our choices and our destinies. If time is an illusion, then our decisions have a much greater weight than we suppose, reverberating in dimensions that defy our perception. But why does this matter? Because, according to Seth, by understanding God's timelessness, we can free our minds from the shackles of regret and anxiety about the future. If everything exists simultaneously, then the divine essence offers us infinite chances for recreation and resignification. You are not a prisoner of time, but a creator capable of shaping realities interconnected with consciousness. Think about it. What if you could access the wisdom of the future or heal trauma from the past by recognizing this simultaneity? Seth's provocation is not just intellectual. She is a spark for an inner awakening. And will you continue to be trapped by the illusion of the clock, or will you dare to realize that the divine in you is already living all its possibilities? Now, this is the true boldness of understanding the timelessness of God. Not waiting for tomorrow, but recognizing that you are eternal. The idea that each of us is a co-creator of reality sounds audacious, almost heretical to some, but that is exactly what Seth proposes in his messages channeled by Jane Roberts. He challenges us to abandon the comfortable passivity of believing that life happens to us, and calls us to understand that, in fact, life happens for us. According to Seth, reality is an ever-changing tapestry, woven by the power of our intentions and perceptions. Every thought, desire, and fear is a thread that influences the fabric of existence, shaping it in ways we often don't even realize. This vision places each individual in a fundamental role, that of creator. We are not just observing a fixed and unchanging world. We are interacting with a reality that responds and adapts to our conscious and unconscious choices. This means that the responsibility for our experience does not lie with an external entity, but with us. And this can be both empowering and scary if you realize the impact that every decision and thought has. You'll begin to realize that luck or fate is largely our own creation. Seth goes further and suggests that this co-creation is not limited to personal aspects. He argues that collective consciousness also shapes larger realities, influencing everything from societies to global phenomena. Here, the connection between all beings becomes evident. When millions of thoughts and emotions intertwine, we create patterns of reality that go beyond the boundaries of the individual and reverberate in the collective. Think about the last time you felt a strong impulse, positive or negative, and saw how events around you began to change. It's no coincidence. Seth provokes us to take the reins of this co-creation, transforming us into modern alchemists who, consciously or unconsciously, define the contours of the world in which we live. And now, the inevitable question. Are you willing to accept that your life is your work, a continuous creation where you are, at the same time, the artist and the art? Seth's vision of God breaks the barriers of conventional thinking and pushes us towards an understanding that few have the audacity to explore. God as pure energy. This is not a poetic metaphor, but a radical statement about the true nature of the divine. For Seth, God is not a transcendent, separate, and observing being. Instead, it is an immanent energy, alive in every particle of the universe, permeating every being, object, and thought. God is the force that unites and sustains the fabric of reality, a source that vibrates at the heart of everything that exists. Transcendence and immanence, concepts often seen as opposites, are intertwined in Seth's explanation. God transcends the limitations of matter and time, yes, but this transcendence is expressed immanently in everything we touch, see, and feel. This energy is both the seed of the cosmos and the field itself in which the seed germinates. She is at the same time the architect and the brick, the vital breath and the matter that breathes. Seth challenges our need to categorize and label God, leading us to an understanding that dissolves the boundaries between the spiritual and the material. This pure energy is not an external force visiting the world. It is the world itself in constant movement, the essence of being and becoming. When we understand this, we realize that connection with the divine is not a rare mystical event, but an ongoing interaction. Every breath, every thought, every cell that pulses in our body is part of this energy. The idea may be disconcerting, especially for those accustomed to imagining God as a distant figure, but it is a proposal that expands the perception of the sacred. If God is pure energy, then the separation between creator and creation dissolves. We become an extension of this force, manifesting it in our actions and thoughts. This places unparalleled responsibility and power in our hands. We are simultaneously part of divinity and its expressions. And now, are we ready to live with the awareness that we are carriers of this divine energy? Or do we prefer to continue looking at the sky, searching for a figure that has always been within us? The true journey to knowing the nature of God does not begin in sacred books, temples, or doctrines. Seth, with his almost poetic and at the same time incisive approach, states that spiritual self-exploration is the starting point for uncovering the divine. God is not a concept that you can understand externally, as if you were studying a phenomenon under a microscope. Instead, God is an internal experience, a truth that awakens and reveals itself as we delve into our own consciousness. This approach completely transforms the spiritual quest. It is no longer a hunt for treasure outside ourselves, but a rediscovery of what is already there, waiting to be recognized. Seth provokes us to explore our deepest layers, the ones we often avoid out of fear or ignorance. He teaches that every emotion, thought, and dream is a reflection of this divine essence. In other words, the journey to knowing God involves accepting and understanding who we really are. And that doesn't just mean exploring our enlightened aspects, but also confronting the shadows, fears, and contradictions. Because, in the end, the divine is not just light. It is the paradoxical union of all human experiences. It takes courage for this exploration. It is not easy to face the truth that the spark of God is present in both moments of ecstasy and pain, in our successes and failures. This is Seth's vision, that of a God who is not distant, but who inhabits every act of self-knowledge and self-acceptance. When we begin to uncover this inner presence, the separation between the divine and the human dissolves. Spirituality becomes practical, everyday, and tangible. So, the big question is, are you willing to explore yourself to the point of finding the sacred in yourself? Because, according to Seth, the only way to truly know God is to delve into yourself with authenticity and vulnerability. It is a call to the brave, to those who are ready to discover that the search for God is, in fact, a search for their own essence. In the 1960s, when the world was still struggling between cultural revolutions and the advancement of science, Jane had an experience that redefined her life and many people's understanding of spirituality. It all started almost trivially. One night, while working on a poem with her husband, Rob Butts, Jane felt a presence, a flow of ideas that didn't seem to come from her. It was there that Seth, an entity that called itself a spiritual educator, entered the scene and began dictating profound messages about the nature of reality and God. But what made Jane such a unique figure was her meticulous and authentic approach. She was not a typical medium who used rituals or theatrics. His communication sessions with Seth took place almost casually, in the comfort of his living room, with Rob transcribing every word. This simplicity made everything more impressive. Jane, a critically minded woman, constantly questioned the nature of these messages. And this is what makes his account so powerful. It was not blind, but a curious and questioning search. Seth brought a bold perspective on God not as a distant or hierarchical being, but as a conscious energy, intrinsic to everything. Jane, through her own experiences, witnessed the feeling that each word resonated with an intimate truth, one that seemed to come from within her, but also from a much larger place. His personal experiences were intense and sometimes challenging. She reported feeling a fusion of consciousness, as if she were both present and immersed in an ocean of understanding that transcended the human mind. The reports of these experiences, described in works such as Seth Speaks, are a window into a world where the separation between the human and the divine is abolished. Jane transformed her home into a meeting point between the physical and the metaphysical, where Seth's messages echoed as reminders that divinity need not be sought in distant temples, but recognized in every aspect of being. And now, the question arises: how many of us are willing to listen to that inner voice that calls us to explore beyond the obvious? Seth, through Jane Roberts, minced no words when discussing the limitations of traditional religion. And this wasn't a gratuitous attack. It was constructive criticism that aimed to expand the boundaries of spiritual understanding. Seth challenged the notion that God is a separate being, judged by rigid dogma and hierarchical structures. Instead, it presented divinity as a living presence, a conscious energy that permeates everyone and everything, a concept that many religious systems avoid in the name of simplicity and control. Traditional religion, with its rules and rituals, often limits the understanding of God by confining the divine in human forms and metaphors. Seth drew attention to this limitation and how it prevents people from understanding their own intrinsic connection to the divine. The image of a paternalistic God, sitting on a distant throne, supervising and judging, according to Seth, underestimates the complexity and beauty of the true divine nature. This view creates a divide, a barrier that separates the human from the sacred, while Seth emphasized that true divinity is immanent, pulsing through every aspect of existence. This leads us to question, to what extent has religion, with all its virtues, become a gilded cage, imprisoning spirituality instead of freeing it? Seth provoked us to go beyond these limitations, to see God not as an external entity, but as the essence that moves and connects every particle in the universe. It is a perspective that invites us to a more active and personal spirituality, where the search for answers does not end in sacred books, but begins in a deep internal dialogue. Seth's bold invitation is clear. Let us rethink spirituality as a journey of personal discovery, without intermediaries that dictate what is sacred and what is not. The question, then, echoes: are we ready to abandon the old narratives and embrace the vastness of the divine that lives within us? One of Jane Roberts' most intriguing interviews revealed details that resonate to this day, challenging conventional thinking about God and reality. Imagine an ordinary woman with no religious pretensions or mystical pretensions, suddenly becoming the spokesperson for an entity called Seth, who proposed ideas that ripped the veil of traditional understanding. In one of these conversations, in 1972, Jane was asked how Seth defined God. The answer was a direct blow to collective perception. Seth did not see God as a separate figure sitting on a heavenly throne. Instead, he described a conscious, timeless force that permeates all things, present both in the atom that makes up matter and in the vastness of galaxies. Jane explained that Seth described God as the source of all, not in a passive sense, but as a vibrant, creative energy that is constantly expanding and experimenting. This vision challenged the idea of a static, external creator, presenting instead a concept of divinity that participates and lives in every moment, in every being. The interview made it clear that the presence of God, according to Seth, is both immanent and transcendent, dissolving the line between creator and creation. The impact of this revelation was profound. It was no longer a matter of a distant God who needed to be found, but of a divine who was always there, intertwined in every fiber of existence. Jane, with her down-to-earth tone and eyes that reflected a mixture of fascination and doubt, admitted that this vision required a new way of thinking, one that embraced paradox and welcomed the idea that reality as we know it is just one facet of a much broader whole. The question that echoed after this interview was as provocative as the answer. If God is in everything and participates in everything, how does this change the way we see ourselves and interact with the world? Seth left us with an invitation to discover the divine within and without, always present and always in creation. Applying Seth's vision to everyday life is a challenge that, if accepted, radically transforms the way we experience reality. Seth, through Jane Roberts, brought a clear message. We are co-creators of our existence, with a power to shape reality that we often underestimate. But how to translate this ambitious idea into practical actions? First, we need to cultivate the awareness that our thoughts are not passive. They are seeds. Seth emphasizes that each thought generates a vibration that contributes to the fabric of our experience. This means that consciously observing and choosing what we feed mentally is fundamental. Start your day with a simple practice. Take 5 minutes to visualize yourself living the experiences you want, feeling the emotion associated with them as if they were already real. This exercise is not about empty positive thinking, but about aligning your energy with what you want to create. Second, recognize the impact of your emotions. Seth argues that emotions are catalysts that amplify mental creation. If you constantly find yourself in states of fear or doubt, this is what you project into your reality. A powerful exercise is emotional readjustment. Whenever you find yourself stuck in a negative emotion, stop and breathe deeply. Identify the emotion and refocus it on something that brings you relief, even if for a moment. This small movement of consciousness already changes the quality of the energy that emanates. Another crucial point is honest self-exploration. Seth has always reinforced that the spiritual journey is not limited to rituals or external beliefs, but a deep dive into who we are. Practicing self-observation through meditation, reflective writing, or even meaningful conversations helps uncover thought patterns that influence our perception of reality. And finally, be bold enough to believe that your reality can change. Seth challenges us to abandon the role of victims of circumstances and adopt the stance of conscious architects of our lives. Try small tests. Change a limiting belief for a week and notice the nuances in your life. For example, replace "I'm never lucky" with "luck is always around me and I notice it." This creates an opening for experiences that would previously go unnoticed. The question that remains is, are you willing to integrate this co-creator vision into every action, thought, and feeling, and take responsibility for the changes that arise? The path can be challenging, but, according to Seth, it is the gateway to a life lived in full awareness and connection with the whole. The idea of parallel realities is not new. It has permeated both science fiction and mystical philosophy for centuries. However, Seth, through the words of Jane Roberts, has brought this notion to a deeper and more practical level, suggesting that these realities not only exist, but that we have the ability to access and learn from them. Imagine a universe where each decision creates an unfolding, a new reality that coexists with our own. It's not about escapism, but about recognizing that existence is a multidimensional mosaic where each piece has its own truth. Seth explained that each of us lives in a universe of probabilities, where all unfulfilled choices still vibrate and influence. He urged us to realize that by tuning into our consciousness, we can access insights, solutions, and wisdom from these parallel realities. But how does this work in practice? How can we apply this understanding to improve our lives? The first step is to understand that the mind is not an entity isolated from time and space. It is a bridge between the visible and the invisible, capable of connecting with these different realities. Deep meditation practices, visualizations, and even lucid dreaming can act as portals to these worlds. During these altered states of consciousness, ideas that seem to come out of nowhere may actually be a glimpse of a version of ourselves who took a different path and gained unique knowledge. Have you ever wondered why some ideas come to mind with inexplicable clarity, as if they were memories of something that never happened? Seth would say they are echoes of these coexisting realities. A bold exercise, suggested by thinkers inspired by Seth, is to dialogue with the version of yourself that lives in the reality where your greatest aspirations have already been realized. Close your eyes and imagine a meeting with this full you. Ask what he did differently, what mentality he adopted, and what actions he took. Write down the answers that emerge without judging them. This practice, although it may seem simple, can reveal transformative insights. Seth also warned that accessing these realities is not just a game of curiosity. It requires responsibility. When we understand that we are always in contact with multiple possibilities, we realize that our current choices shape not only our future, but are intertwined with the larger web of existence. There is immense potential, but also responsibility in how we use this wisdom. Ask yourself, am I willing to explore these layers of existence and use this knowledge to expand, not limit, my life experience? True boldness lies not only in accepting the existence of parallel realities, but in integrating them in ways that transform our understanding of the now. Are you prepared to open that door and walk through the odds with awareness and purpose? If so, the world, or rather, the worlds that await, is vast and full of possibilities that can redefine what it means to live fully. If you've made it this far, you've already walked a path that few dare tread. You allowed yourself to challenge common notions of reality, cross ideas that touch the invisible and the ethereal, and glimpse a universe where each choice reverberates in multiple dimensions. It's a courageous journey, but not just an intellectual exploration. What to do now with this new perception? How can we transform these ideas into practices that impact everyday life in a real and meaningful way? First, remember that the key to living fully is in conscious attention. It's not just about recognizing that parallel realities exist, but about being present in this moment, understanding that it is a fusion of choices made and possibilities open. Dedicate a few minutes in the morning to a simple but powerful exercise. When you wake up, breathe deeply and imagine that your day is a blank book. Ask yourself, what version of myself do I want to manifest? Visualize this version moving through the day, facing challenges, achieving small triumphs, smiling, and overcoming obstacles. This practice of intentional modeling creates a vibrational field that attracts these desired realities. Another practice is what I like to call interdimensional dialogues. Take time to reflect on a dilemma or deep desire. Close your eyes and imagine meeting a version of yourself who has already accomplished this. Do not seek answers with anxiety. Let them come. This exercise may seem quirky, but with consistency you'll notice valuable insights emerge, seemingly out of nowhere. Seth taught us that nothing is a fertile space, a window into realities that already exist in potential. Emotions are guides. Whether something arouses enthusiasm or disgust is an indicator. Use these emotions to direct your actions, but don't let them dominate you. Practice observation. Be a witness to your emotions without completely identifying yourself. When you feel angry or afraid, ask yourself, what part of me is speaking? And which version of me can offer another perspective? And remember, we are not alone in this dance of possibilities. Every choice and every thought is a step in a choreography that connects you to every moment and version of yourself. Accept this invitation to live with the intensity of someone who knows that now is a portal to all things. Who knows what you'll find in the next passage? Now, a bold invitation. Comment below something that resonated with you or an insight that emerged along this journey. Sharing is an act that strengthens collective consciousness, helping others recognize the depth of their own journeys. Sign up and stay close to this community where we explore, uncover, and transform complex ideas into daily practices that uplift the spirit.